Okay, good evening, everyone. And I hope that you've had a fun-filled week, maybe a bit of frustration, but I hope you're winning more than losing, right? So this session number 2, initially we had planned other things to teach you, but I've decided to change the topics just a bit. And my focus today, I think, is really on how you can build better chatbots, okay? So I'm going to take a two-phase approach. The first phase or first part of this talk would be basically a review of your basic chatbot concepts, things like references and so on, to make sure that all of us are on the same page. Because from the Q&A, I can see there's a lot of, maybe confusion about various things about these templates and whatnot, right? And how they work. And so please, if I will pause at the end of each section, and if you've got any questions, please put it into the YouTube chat, and Chris will helpfully copy those questions over onto the Zoom chat, which I'm using right now. Okay, so I'll show you how to make fancy start pages, how to use button links and images. There are notes, detailed notes for these already actually in your lab instructions in the recipe section, but I will go through maybe some practical examples because it may be confusing to some. Okay, I'll show you how to use multi-line responses, how to add quizzes. And last of all, I think I already have this thing. It's a mixed bag of projects which may be interesting. And there's an extras: how to upload images, how to use your camera, takes snapshots and upload it into your chatbot, and a few other stuff, things. Okay, so without much further ado, let's go forward. So I want to talk now really as a review on how matching happens. Okay. And I want to talk about something which is actually only briefly, maybe in passing, discussed in the videos, and that is on literal matches. Okay, so what is a literal match? So let's assume you have a chatbot, and the chatbot has got, let's say, just 2 rules. So those are 2 empty boxes there. The first rule is Q with the word hi. So this is the literal word hi. Okay, and then in response, your chat, if this rule matches, your response, or rather the chatbot's response would be hi. Okay, and the second rule is the word hello. So this is the literal word hello. It's not a type. It's not a class. So it's not a type. It's not a reference. It's just the word hello. Okay, and if that matches the user's input, then your bot will say fine, thanks. Okay. Okay, so let's say your user types in or clicks a button to say hello, how are you? What's really happening next? Right. So that's the question that I want you to understand. I want you to understand this process of what happens from your user input and how it interacts with your chatbot rules in detail. Okay, so you need to be very clear about this. All right. So the first step is that the words in the sentence are, first of all, capitalized. So there's no lowercase and uppercase anymore. And it's tokenized. In other words, it's split according to words. Okay, so if you notice, hello, how are you? We know that there are words hello, how are you, because there is a space between them. Okay, English has this, and so do many other languages. But not all languages have this, very simple delimiters between the words. Like Thai, for example, it's a long string of text, there's no break. All right, and there are other languages where there's no break. In Chinese, for example, you use phrases rather than words, right? So the spaces are actually phrase markers rather than delimiters between words. So this system really works best for languages like English, okay, and perhaps in Bahasa and a few other languages. Right, but the important part is to understand that it's split into these separate words, okay? And these 4 words are fed or sent to your chatbot, okay? And the first thing your chatbot does is to look at the first rule in the list of rules. So let's say if I've got one include, let's say you include a topic, the first rule in that topic is used. If you've got 2 or more topics that you've included, then the matching process will happen from the first include in the first topic, goes down, then tries the next one, next include, the third include, and so on. The chatbot will work its way down until a match is found. If there is no match, then the IDK is sent to your user. Okay, so in this case, the green button there indicates that this rule is being tested. Okay, it's being tried by your chatbot. So the rule, the rule part of this, the template part of this rule is just Q high. So it will try to match the word high anywhere within the sentence, right? So it first tries in position number 1, no match, because one says hello, one says hi, no match. Then it tries the second position, how and hi, no match. It tries the next one, are and hi, no match. It tries the last position, which is the end of the sentence, and says you and hi, again, no match. And therefore, this rule is discarded. It's not used for matching anymore in the sentence. Instead, the chatbot moves on to the next rule, okay, which is just the word hello. Now, in this case, you can clearly see that hello and hello match. In fact, it will be the hello in your system will be capitalized as well. So the capitalized hello and capitalized hello both match, and therefore we have a match. So this rule is used, and it'll be marked like, I can say in the slides here in green, the green button, meaning that it's tried and it's okay. All right. And so because of that, the bot responds back to your user the first A that matches, or first available A, which is fine, thanks. Okay. If there are more than one A, for example, then again, just the first possible one will be sent, not all the rest. Don't think that you got A 3 times, that all 3 A's will be sent. No, only the first A which matches is sent. Okay. So if you've got guards in front of your A, then it will check the guard, it will check the guard, it will check the guard until it gets a match, and then the matching, the suitable guard, it passes the guard, that A will be sent back to your user. If none of the guards are matched, then the IDK is sent to your user. So always have at least one free A. That means no guards at the bottom in your chatbots. Okay. So now let's say I've got 2 words instead of one like hello or hi. I've got 2. How does that work, right? So this is a literal match again, but on multiple locations. All right. So we got did and you. Now, if let's say the user said hello, how are you? Well, you can see that it matches you, but it doesn't match did, right? So did is missing, and therefore this sentence will not match this template. Okay, there's no match. Let's say the user says, when did you start drinking coffee? Well, here clearly you can see there's a did you. All right, that's a match, and good, it goes off, right? So it matches. How about did you go home? Well, again, you can see the did you pattern out there. It's a template, yeah. And of course, again, there's a match. And if it says you didn't eat it, did you, on the final position? And again, the answer is yes, there is a match, and response is also, it will match and then it will send a response. Okay. How about did she give it to you? So the did and the you are separated by other words. So in this case, well, those 2 words are present, but they are separated. So because of that, there is no match. All right. So I hope now you understand how the matching process is done for these simple literal matches. Okay. Now I want to go through again also with ordinary references, because I see there's a lot of confusion about what these are and how they work. All right. So let's just review. If I have a Q with a $X, the $sign tells you that it is a reference of some kind. All right. So in this case, it's an ordinary reference. So what it means is that instead of matching a specific word, the $sign with anything in front of it will match any word. All right. It'll match any word. And more than that, after it matches, and this is the important part, after it matches, you can use that $X symbol to recall the word that was matched. All right. So I'll show you what that means shortly. And when you recall it, you want to use that match in your response part of your rule, like your A. That means your A section. Right? You can actually recall it in the A section. For example, let's say in this case, I've got the Q, which is the $X, nothing else. Okay. And remember, the $X will match any word. Therefore, it will match anything in here. All right. And it will start first with the when. Okay, and it says, yeah, there's a match there because when is a word, $X means any word, I'm going to match it. And most importantly, I'm going to take that when and store it into the $X. So if that's a match, and importantly, that the when $X contains the word when in capitals, all right, which you can again use in your responses. Okay. Now, let's say something more complicated like this. They've got $2 now, X and Y, and it's a word between them called or. So or is a literal or, all right? So you can actually mix these anyhow you like, references with literals and so on, okay? So do you like tea or coffee? All right, it will match tea or coffee. And your X will be tea and your Y reference will be coffee in your A. Okay, so after the match is done, it saves the values of our T into X and the Y coffee into Y, and you can use that in your A. Okay, now, quick question. Very similar to the one before, but instead of X and Y, I have X and X, X or X, $X or $X. So in this case, what it means, what you're telling the system is that it's a constraint, all right? A repeated reference is a constraint. In other words, they must be the same on both sides. It cannot be different. So in this case, you say again, tea or coffee, all right? You think, well, it's a reference or reference, it would match. But no, because this queue requires that the first and the last reference be the same reference, $X, all right? So it will not match because tea is not the same as coffee. But if you say, so there's no match, yeah? But if you say, do you like tea or tea, which is a little nonsensical, all right? Then it will match because tea is the same as tea, and your $X will be the word tea only after the match is done in your response part, in your A's, okay? So I hope this clarifies a lot of the confusion that I'm seeing actually on the chats. Now, it's oftentimes useful to ignore a word, okay? So in that case, you can use the underscore. You don't have to use a $, anything. You can ignore a word. If you don't want to save the word, don't save it. So use a reference to save the match so that you can use it again in your A's. If you're not going to do that, then don't do that. Just use a underscore, okay? So use an underscore to ignore any single word, all right? So for example, do you like, this will match, do you like tea or coffee? Because it's X and Y, so tea and coffee are different, it's okay. And the or is discarded. For example, you can say, right, so it will match because the or is ignored. Only one word is ignored, yeah? So X is tea and Y is coffee. And if you say, do you prefer tea to coffee? So there's a different conjunction there, tea to coffee. Then you can say that it will also match. Sorry, both will match, yeah? There's a check mark for both. And in this case, X is tea, and again, Y, sorry, tea or cocoa, tea to cocoa, X is tea, and Y is cocoa, right? So both match, right? Okay, next, I want to review also constraints to references. And this is actually pretty important, all right? So you want to add constraints. Now, the problem is, how do you prevent a reference from matching just any word? I mean, it's not very useful, it just matches any old word, okay? And this is where you want to add constraints, all right? And there are two kinds of constraints. The one that you normally do is called types or type constraints. And there's also something that's built on top of that, which is type references, all right? But the main one is really type constraints, right? So let's look at what this is. So let's say I've got two types declared here, that's food and cake. And food is nasi padang and kueh bangkit, all right? These are two foods very popular here in Singapore. And you've got a cake, which is perhaps kueh bangkit. Now, it's not strictly a cake, it's a biscuit actually, but let's just bend the rules a bit. All right, so kueh bangkit is a single thing in cake, all right? And the underscore means that you want to be able to join those two words even if they have a space, all right, as one thing, all right? So let's say now you've got $X dot, the at symbol food. So what does that actually mean? All right. So the $X is, as what you know, it's just an ordinary reference. All right. It will by itself will match anything. But the at food, the dot at food means that it will only match any type, any word which is a type of food. Okay, any word, but it has to be a type of food. In other words, it will match nasi padang or kueh bangkit only, nothing else, because there's no other foods that declared. There's no other words that of type food declared here. Okay, and more importantly, like I said before, the $X will contain the word after the match. Right. So in this case, you can of course use to store it and recall it. And in this case, $X, of course, can only take two values, which is either nasi padang or kueh bangkit. It can't take anything else because those are the only two possibilities for food. Okay, if you add more, of course, then you have more possibilities. Now, let's say now I have, sorry, it's a mistake here. It should be at cake. Let me just correct this quickly so that you don't get confused. All right, I must have done this. Drink cake. All right, that's much better. Okay, my apologies there. So here again, we still have got the same type declarations, but now we've got two constraints. So the $X needs to be food, but it also needs to be cake, and you must put the dots there. Okay, without the dots, it won't work. All right. So the dots is like an and symbol, so it needs to be a food and a cake. All right. So this reference now will match any word which is both a food and a cake. All right. And your $X will contain that word after the match. Okay. And there's only one word which is both a food and a cake, and that is kueh bangkit. All right. So that's the only possible match in this case. All right. Okay. So much for type constraints. What are type references? Well, if you have $X dot at food, well, it's a bit verbose. For most situations, you want to just make a simpler form. This is exactly the same as, let's put a $food. All right. If food is already declared or defined as a type, then whatever that type means the thing on the left. So the left and the right sides are exactly the equivalent. All right. So $food is a type reference. It's just a short form, basically, and you can only use it once within a queue, right? Because unless you have food and food, $food, well, you can only use it once, because once you have a food or $food, you're also having the same situation where you have $X and $X twice, right? So you can only use it once, really, practically in most situations. All right, so you can use it once in a queue, or you can use it multiple times if it's an alternative, like how we've done it for the plurals form for animals and so on, right? And your $food will contain the word after the match. So in other words, it behaves otherwise it behaves just like a reference. Okay. Oops. Okay, so I hope you guys got that. Sorry, my bad. I went too far. Okay. Right, so the $food is just like your references, except that you're constraining to be the type that is being used in your you're constraining to a type that's being declared. All right, and you can use the food anywhere you want. So I hope that is clear. I'm going to pause here just for a moment and maybe look at the chat. All right. Okay, there's a question here from someone who says, for session 3 references, guard step 8, how do we check for the opposite of a string, in this case, coffee, right? So the answer is that you use the word not. Okay. Just give me a minute. Okay. So use the word not. I think this question has already been answered. I'm not sure you can see my screen here, but the question has been answered in the chat group. Okay. Will you teach how to link APIs and the list of APIs we can connect via Smojo? I won't teach you how to connect APIs because that's a long topic, and actually we have videos for those, and we have full-blown instructions and tutorials for that already. It's the Busby template, and there are videos there for you to look at. And if there's, I think we did a couple of extra videos that you want to also, peruse on our site. Okay, what I will do is to teach you on the next session. So next week, we will see how to connect to the ChatGPT API. Okay. Do you have any guide for list of commands that can be used in a script? Yes, we do. It's under the Smojo on the top. Now, these kind of questions, please ask in the chat because it's fairly easy to answer. What I want you to ask about is concerning this talk. Okay, so any questions concerning the topics I'm talking about right now, please ask. Okay, any general purpose Q&A, we'll leave it to the end of the meeting because I have a lot of material to cover and we don't have enough time. Right? Are there any more questions, Chris? Okay, so good question now. What's the difference between $X underscore and $X? Okay, in other words, what's the difference? So let me just, maybe I can type it here somewhere. So we go back to the ignore part. Where was that? There we are. So you can see my screen here. All right, so you can see here, this means completely ignore. In other words, don't save it, don't do anything. Now, if I change this to the $ like that, will it change the behavior? Well, not really, because this means that this is a reference, okay? So it will match, again, if it's just this three, it's almost the same. The only difference is that this $_ will save the data into this reference, okay? Without it, it will just be discarded. There is a difference though, if I reuse, let's say I've got two spaces I want to ignore, all right? So if I have two things I want to ignore, let's say $X underscore $Y, right? So there's 4 things I want to match, 2 of them in the middle I want to ignore, all right? Then they are not the same because remember what I said, if 2 references are the same, it's a constraint, all right? If they are a constraint, that means, for example, let's say I have, let me edit this a bit so you can see it maybe clearer, okay? So let's say if I had something like this, yeah? Okay, then this, and let's say this, what I'll do is I will just copy this instead of doing it just once. Okay, so let's say if I have this now, and if I move this up like that, now add a new one, okay? Now there's a big difference between something like this, a big difference, yeah? Between something like this and with and without the $, is a big difference. So this and this are not the same. Okay, so this one here will just ignore the 2 words in between, but this one here will force these 2 words to be the same word. All right, so don't use this form ever. In fact, you shouldn't use the $_ anywhere apart from a catch-all. All right, use this form instead if you really want to ignore stuff. All right. Okay, so someone asks, what is the difference between something like, hang on now, just copy this one more time. A question was asked by one of the users, and that is, what is the difference between, let's delete all these things here. What is the difference between sorry. Okay, between this dot string animal and dot. Okay, what's the difference between these two? Actually, they are very similar, right? This one here, the dot add animal, is just the add animal is just a constraint. Okay, it will not. Okay, so the add animal is a constraint. It means that your reference must be of type animal. Okay, this one on the other hand, you've got two references. All right, and in this example, the $X must be of type animal, but you will also have another reference sitting on the same position, which is of type animal. All right, so there's meaningless to have this form here. This form here is fine. All right, but there's a difference when you do it with something like a plus S. If I put a plus S here, for example, there is a big difference between these two. This means that this $X, all right, will take the $animal, whatever it is, it will match that with an S. Okay, and that word will be fed into this $X. Okay, at the same time, the name of the animal without the S will be fed into the word, into the reference animal. All right, so in other words, with this one, the plural form is stored in $X. All right, so I want to go here, for example, just copy this a bit. Here, let's say if I did something like horses, right? Do you like horses? So the horses, I'm going to put in capitals so you can see clearly, right? So in this case here, if you have something like that, then here $X is the plural form of horses because it contains both of these things here, okay? But animal will have just the horse part without the S. All right. Now, in this case here, there is no $animal. All right. The animal part is an @ symbol, which is only a check. It's not a storage device. All right. You can think of it that way. And so the X will only contain the plural form only, nothing else. There's no $animal. So in the cases where you want to retrieve both the singular and the plural, you can do this. But having said that, if in English, there's actually a better method to do that, and there is the plural system, okay, which I will show you how to use that later on. Okay, at the end of this talk, actually. This way is one way, it's a simple way, but it's just an exercise for you to understand how to use the various constraints and so on. Okay, I really have to rush because we are behind time. I want to show you the the other parts, okay, where we can begin. Sorry, let me just close this chat window and start. Okay, so the question now is, how do you create some fancy start pages? Well, you already know that the problem is that you can't customize the init part of the chatbot very much, right? The start page is actually very important because they create an impression. The first impressions are important. And people either love your bot or dislike it because of that start page. So you want to be able to get a good start page up. It's very important. But right now, it's pretty basic, right? It's very hard to customize as well. Is there a better way? And the answer is yes. But you need to use words, a Smojo word, and a code. Okay, so I'm going to explain this and break it down in detail because we're going to use this technique a lot in our examples, in the templates, you know, in all the stuff that we do. All right, so although I'm teaching it for start pages, it's widely used for the other parts of your chatbot as well. Exact same technique. All right. All right. So what is a Smojo word? So it is, if you know programming, it's a function. Okay, it's sort of like a function, right? It's not exactly a function, but it's a bit like a function. All right, so you start off by defining the word. So in this case, the word is called welcome. All right, and the double dots there with the space. Now, it's Mojo spaces are super important. I noticed that some of you leave out the space between between these words, and that means you will have an error. All right, you'll say unknown word or something like that, right? So in this case, I've got a colon space welcome, right? And what that does is it creates a new word for you, all right? And then you've got the body of the word, what it actually gives out or what it does, all right? So in this case, my start page text, okay, my start page text is in green here. It's hello, welcome to Aaron's chatbot, okay? Pretty basic, but better than nothing, right? And then there's a semicolon, all right? So semicolon is actually a function. The colon is a function or a word, and the semicolon is also a word, and these are used to create words, all right? These are two creation symbols to use for words. They're not symbols, they're actually words themselves, all right? So this is how you create a new definition or new word in Mojo, all right? So I've just created here the word hello. The word welcome, all right? The word welcome, the first part defines a new word called welcome, all right? The last semicolon completes the word or finishes it, all right? And the middle part here is basically the output of the word itself. Very simple to understand, I hope, all right? And so now if I run welcome, it's going to give me back hello, welcome to Aaron's chatbot, okay? All right, so the next step is for you to add this into a new topic. Let's say, something like intro.m or something like that. It's really up to you. And then you want to include this topic in main.m, right? And I also recommend that you view the video. If you want to know a bit more about words in Mojo and so on, there's a video called Understanding Mojo where I really break it down. It's 12 minutes long, but I think, although it's simple, it's not easy to understand, okay, unfortunately. So take your time, all right? And come back to it bit by bit, then you answer a bit more, all right? But this is essentially all you need to know for this part here, all right? Now, the next part is that you need to attach or call up the welcome word in your init colon section of your publish, all right? So there's a section in publish called init colon, you put a space there, and then you put use a smart code with a welcome inside there. Sorry, a smart context with a welcome. Okay, that's all you need. Okay, so when you've linked this up, this is your linking already, right? So you've linked it up already like this. Okay, now when you publish your bot again, when it starts up, it will actually, instead of init doing anything, it will look at your welcome word and then run the welcome word straight away for you. Okay, so this is how it looks like when you actually do the publish and you start on the chatbot itself. But of course, it's still pretty basic. Okay, it's pretty basic because you don't have a lot of text, images, and other stuff, right? You just spice it up a bit. All right, so I'm going to just demo this very quickly because I hope that is clearer. I need to watch the time so you don't overrun on the time. Just a second. I'll find my browser. There you go. Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen here. So I've got the CU 101 here, and all I've done is to just clean it up a bit. Okay. I'm going to main out here, and I've got my intro here. So I've already pasted that. Sorry, this is the wrong one. My bad. Okay, I'm going to make a fresh new one for you. All right, so it's welcome. All right, end the word. Then I'm going to say hello, welcome to. All right, I'm going to call this, let's say, I don't know, intro. Or I'll call it welcome. All right. Then I'm going to let me just copy this off. Sorry, I was doing some other stuff earlier here for today's talk. And let's say here, I'm going to include welcome. All right, that's the next step. And of course, you're going to scroll down a bit and you look at the init word there and just put in the word, a smart context with the word welcome. All right, so this word here, welcome, doesn't have to match the file name, but it has to match this part here. Okay, and you must, of course, include that, otherwise you can't find it. All right, so now I'm going to publish this, and you can see that it will start off with, hello, welcome to Aaron's chatbot. All right, so now we're going to build on this to make something that's a little more sophisticated, right? Not so basic. So that's where we use quotes. All right. So the problem is really that, can we write more complex text, right? Not just a single line, maybe HTML, for example, in Mojo, right? Not just a single line of text, which is actually becomes very long. Then, you know, I'm sure all of you have seen these very long A's, and you're thinking, man, this sucks, right? Okay, so there's actually many ways of doing it. All right, so the answer is yes, but you need to use multi-line text within a quote. So the quote here is a special open bracket and close bracket with a Q for quote. Right, and again, it is also a word as well, so be careful, put spaces. Right, and you can use this to actually write HTML for yourself, or CSS, or anything else. Right, so I'll give you an example here. Here I've got the same welcome word, but I've put in a quote, Q and the end Q, open Q and close Q, and inside I put in some HTML in green. All right, it's a big welcome sign with H1. All right. So you need to know a bit about HTML. There's tons of tutorials online. You can cut and paste stuff. You know, you can learn HTML quite easily. It's not rocket science. All right. So what this does is to, you can see here, this is the output. You have a big H1, which is the header one, which is welcome. And then if you can, I'm not sure you can barely see this, but the M and the H there, type M, that M is in bold. It's very subtle. It's on my screen, right? But I hope you can see it. And the H is also in bold as well. Okay. And similarly, you can do things like colors and other stuff. Not a problem, right? And something called CSS or styles. So this is still better than before, obviously, but it can be improved further by using images and buttons, and we'll discuss that shortly. Okay, I hope this is clear enough. I was going to demo it, but I won't demo because we're running short on time a bit, right? I'd like to leave some time for Q&A later on. All right, so the next question is how to use buttons, links, images. In fact, there are other things as well that you can use, like MCQs and so on, which I won't discuss too much because there is already a recipe section, and there are also sample chatbots out there which have and document all these things. All right, there's too much to document all in one swallow. All right, so I'm just going to introduce the basics, then point you out perhaps to other material that we have on our website, or templates or videos that you can actually use to look at other stuff. All right, and I will try and collect these things maybe under one roof, as you will see towards the end of this talk, for the more complicated things. All right, so buttons, images, and links. How do we get these things to work or in our chatbots, right? Well, for a button, all right, now the stuff in purple, all right, you need to understand it's actually a comment. It's a Mojo comment. Okay, it is not a program or anything. It's not part of the program. Okay, and what it does, it's called a stack comment. It just gives you the input and the output. All right, so the double dash separates the input, in other words, what is required by the word, and the output, in other words, what is returned by the word. You can return more than one thing. In this case, I'm giving the caller back HTML text, but you input the text for the word itself, or for the button itself. All right, so the input text into button is what you want to show on the button text itself. All right, like press me. All right, that will be the text that's going to display on the button, right? Then the output will be all the JavaScript and all the HTML that needs to actually make a functional button. All right, and actually this is very customizable. I've only shown you the simplest form. You can customize things like the look and feel of it, how you hover over it, everything you can customize about the button. but I'm showing you the simplest use case. If you want to dig up more, like I said, the recipe section has got more that you can see. All right. For images, again, if you have the URL of a JPEG or something like that from the net, then you just call image. After that, it will again give you the HTML, right? So the input is just the image URL, and the output is HTML. And the HTML is nicely scaled up, rounded, and everything else to fit your chatbot. And again, this is also customizable as well. And last of all, you've got link, which takes in 2 inputs, some text and a URL, and it produces some HTML. Okay, so it takes 2 inputs and produces 1 output. Now, there are many more customizations that you can find in your recipe section of CU 101, and I advise you to actually look at that section closely, right, before you explore anything else. All right, how do you use it? Well, the first part is that you can easily write a Smojo word. You can actually use this already in your A or your M within the smart context, okay? But I want to extend our example of the fancy start page or welcome page and see, how you can actually make this more useful, right? So you basically write a Smojo word and put a quote within it, like how you did for the start page. And the function, the purpose of this thing is to display maybe a set of buttons or set of links, okay? If only one button or you want to embed, then just use a smart context and it'll work. I'll show you how to do that shortly in the demo, all right? So the second step, of course, is to use the button, image, or link. And then you've got to use something called a binding, a template a variable. And that is using CTX. I'll show you, don't worry too much about step 3. I will show you how it's done. And step 4 is just to use that Smojo word like how you would use any other word in your smart context. Okay, fairly straightforward. Okay, so first step is to write the Smojo word. So here I've got a word called menu, and the purpose of the menu is to display the menu itself. All right, some buttons for menus. Okay, let's say for drink or for food, you want the user to click either drink or food, for example. Okay, so I'm starting here with a word called menu, and I'm putting this blank. All right, I only put in the queue, open queue and close queue. All right, so I've done step number 1. Okay, check. Now, step number 2, I got to use the button. All right, so how do I do that? I want 2 buttons. So the first is the food button. Remember, button takes in 1 input. Smojo is left to right. Okay, so the inputs come in from the left. They are transformed by your word to something new on the right. Okay, left to right. Okay, so I've got a food button and a drink button. So that's a step 2. Okay, so on the buttons itself, you'll say food and drink. All right, step 3, you want to use these to push it into the quotes that's below. So I use a binding first. I call the CTX, the bracket space F for food and D for drink, right? It's just convenient. You can call it whatever you like. 1 word only, right? And then what you do is you put in your text in the quotes where you put the hash F and the hash D without the spaces. And what will happen is that when this runs, it will paste in the button for food and the button for drink. And when you click it, it's as if the user typed in food or the user typed in drink, right? And last of all, of course, you want to use this in your templates, okay? In your rule sets, right? Which is in this case, just use a smart context and just call the word. Since you already defined the word menu as a Smojo word, don't confuse the type with the what I call the word, right? All right, that's how we do step 1, 2, 3, 4. Fairly straightforward. And now I'll just demo to you very quickly. Where are we? Not sure why this Chrome keeps disappearing all the time. Just give me a second. There you go. All right, so I'm going to close this thing up. And what I'm going to do is, so I am going to use my intro instead. This is the fancy intro here, right? It says type M for menu and so on. Yeah. And so I'm going to create the menu. Maybe I'll create the menu. Yeah, I'll do a menu here. Right. So a menu. Right. So I want to display the menu with 2 buttons, food or drink. Right. So that's the menu, the first part here to create the word for menu. Right. And then I'm going to create the buttons for food and drink. Let's say food. Oops. And drink. And then I'm going to bind them to the variables f and right. This is one way of doing it. What you could also do is to delete this and say f and d, right? So f is the first one, and drink is the second one, right? Because this is first, this is second. But if that confuses you, you can always do it twice. Same thing, doesn't make a difference, right? And then you can say click something, or I'm going to use some HTML here with the BR, right? And then I'm going to insert the food one first, and then the drink. All right. Now, if you did this, it won't rearrange it correctly. All right. If you want to force it to have 2 buttons, up and bottom, top and bottom, then you need to put in something like a BR here to force it to do that. All right, because it's HTML. Right. So there's no difference here. I'm going to leave it as this. All right. So this is my completed word to print out the menu. Okay. Now I want to use this menu in what I do. So let's say I started a type for menu, and menu, right? It's either M or menu, right? Right. Now you don't have to use types in this case. You can use a literal match, for example, if you want to. But types are easier to manage, easier to check. That's why you use types. All right. So if you want to change the menus later on, you don't have to look through many different rules to go and change them. All right. So that's why you use types. You can even, okay. So here I've got the menu. And here the response is that let's display the menu itself. All right. Done. All right. So here I need to then go back to main. And I'm not going to use welcome anymore. I'm going to use my intro. I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to use my intro, and I'm going to also include my menu, right? All right, so now let's publish the bot. Okay, we go to the bot. Wow. Okay, sorry about this thing, but quiz. That was one of my tests just now. Let me get rid of this thing. All right. Let me get rid of this entirely. Okay, I don't have to do that. Oh, killed it out. Don't worry. Let's go back again to intro. That's all. Okay, again. Let's try it again. Yeah, mistake. Okay, I think I saved it now. All right, so let's publish again so that we don't have that quiz button anymore. Okay, so it's hello, welcome, type M for menu, right? So I'm going to type M for menu, and it should then display the menu, which is food and drink. Now, like I said, this is fairly basic. You can customize it. If you look at the examples, this is why I asked you guys to download the Achita board and the, what's it called again? The Egypt tours board, right? Because they actually customize a lot of different things. What you get out of the box is pretty basic, but you can easily customize. So if you click on food, it's as if your bot responds with food, see? Or if you click on drink, it's as if your bot responds with drink. All right, I hope that is clear and fairly straightforward. Okay, I'm going to just pause here quickly. Not too long, because again, I've got to look at the time. Any questions from this? Hang on, let me just try and get my chat window again. Okay, one of the question is the first question is, can the chatbot respond with words and images at the same time? And the answer is yes, you can. And how to embed images into the code? Well, I've shown you one example just now, right? So I've shown you how to do a button, but you can easily do the same thing for image. So you put the URL space, the image, bind it to a variable, and then do that. I will show you another technique for doing that using the multi-line. You can actually use it right now also with your normal A's, but within a smart context. Okay, but I'll show you later on. It's even easier with the multi-line comments, the multi-line text. It's actually even easier. The next question is, can we add SVGs into the replies? Yes, you can. All right, anything that can be linked up with an image, or let's say it will actually work. Okay. How to do the MCQ style? Well, I don't want to explain that because it's too long. And there is actually a detailed explanation in your recipes section. Okay, so you can work through that. If you don't know how to do that, then maybe we can actually do the I can help you solve it over the chat. Okay, but there are detailed explanation in the recipe section for MCQs. All right, so let me move on then quickly if there are no other questions, because we've got a lot of ground to cover today. Okay, where are we now? Okay, multi-line responses. So now your A is only one line, very limiting. All right, you want to have multiple lines. Well, there's something called multi-line responses, and it's not just gives you multiple lines. All right, and of course you can use a quote, but it's tedious because then you need to write a Smojo word, put in the queue, and then put in all your stuff there. Right, then you need to DIY all the HTML like BR and so on for yourself. That can be pretty tedious. Okay, so there is another method which is called the MM, or the multi-line response. Okay, and you can start. The only thing you need to remember is that you must end it the M dot. Okay, either M dot with a blank or M dot with something. It's okay, but you need to end it with an M dot. That's the only thing, right? But there are many different MMs. A normal MM means just text. Okay, an M with a percentage sign is just a guard. So it will check and see whether that is being satisfied before it proceeds to the rest. All right. An MO means an ordered list, like 1, 2, 3, 4. An MU means an unordered list. In other words, like a dots. All right. An M star is one of the list items. And M1, M2 are the headings, like heading 1 and heading 2. All right, so don't worry, I'll show you an example shortly. So let's say I've got a catch-all here. Okay, I want my catch-all to, first of all, display an image. So now previously, to display an image, you need the image word. But in this case, with an MM, you don't need to do that. It will auto-detect that there is an image there, and then it will wrap it up nicely and also size it correctly as well for you automatically. All right. So that's an image, yeah. M1, which is a big header like the welcome header, and H1, this is M1, right? It's the first header, okay? The M1 is optional. The image is also optional, of course. You don't have to put any of these items. The only, the only mandatory item is the M dot at the end. All right, so this is just text. Then MU is an unordered list. I want to start a list. It needs to be blank. Okay. Don't put anything on the MU line. It's just blank, right? And then you put in the list items. Okay. So that's an M star. All right. All of these need spaces. Yeah. Don't hammer your text next to the M line. You need to put a space between the two of them, right? So M star space, then your text for the item itself. Right. I have another item like, guess my food. Okay. Then I end the list with another MU. All right. So I put an MO at the top. It needs to be an MO on the bottom. But the important part is that you just end it. And then last of all, an M dot. The M dot in this case, I put some text inside, but you can leave it blank as well if you want to. And that is mandatory. If you don't do that, your bot will fail. Okay. It will fail to display and get all kinds of very weird errors. Right. Okay. So you end the MM and the multi-line response. All right. And of course, don't forget the double dash. Okay, that one is also mandatory as well. Okay, so I'll just quickly demo this for you. Okay, I actually have a sample here. So I've just copied and pasted basically. I'm just copying and pasting all that you've seen here on the slides. All right, it's called multi-line. I've seen in multiline.m. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this here as another include, right? So this is my catch-all, yeah, because I put this as a catch-all phrase. Now, I can even do this if I wanted to, underscore AutoCamp, but this is the standard stuff, so I'll just leave it as our standard way of doing things. All right, so I'm just going to add this in. I'm going to publish it here. And what you find is that now if I click M again, I've got my menu. Wonderful. But if I click on food or drink, now don't forget, it doesn't understand anything, right? So it will say, sorry, IDK. It gives me the nice image there, all right, that I've got put in. And then, of course, this is the unordered list, which is the dots. And it says, hope you can find something interesting at the bottom. Now, if I change this here from MU to MO, O is an ordered list, right? Oops. O, not 0, O, okay. And if I publish again, now in fact, you don't have to republish the bot. You don't have to restart the bot actually. You can use the one that you have open up already and maybe just do it again. And what you'll find here is that now it picks up the changes. Okay, it won't pick up the old changes, but the new responses will pick up the changes automatically. All right, so it's actually dynamic, right? You don't have to really close and open again. So here, number 1 is your ordered list, and 1 and 2 because we use ordered list instead. Okay, I'll stop here and maybe you'll click your Q&A. Okay, can we input Chinese characters in Smojo? Well, yes, you can. In fact, there are actually chatbots out there already which use Chinese characters. All right, this supports any character set. Okay, because we are using something called UTF-16. It's a special encoding format. It can handle Chinese characters, it can handle Japanese, it can handle Tamil. All right, that's one of the purposes for us to do the start as well. If you look at the start, Smojo screen, when you do the very start, it says, using the 3 languages, our 3 languages here in Singapore. And so any of those 3 character sets can be used. In fact, pretty much any character set can be used. All right. Okay. What is the best website to find CSS library? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but you can learn about CSS. There's tons of materials on CSS online. There are books you can get from the NLB library, right? They're actually great books from the library. There are a lot of advanced books on CSS as well. Really, I'm not sure where to start because there's so many resources for CSS. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, no questions. Oops, I will move on. Okay, we're making good time, 1 hour. I hope you guys are not bored. Because it gets more interesting, right? Okay, so I can slow down a bit now because I think we have a little more time, right? So this part needs a bit more explaining about adding quizzes, so I'll go a bit more slower here. So the question is, can we add quizzes to our chatbots? The answer is yes, you can, but the problem is that there's so many ways for doing that, right? There's so many ways of doing that. And I will show you one way of doing that, but I'll encourage you, once you know this one way of doing it, then it's not hard for you to go to and see in our templates, do a cut and copy and paste and get the other methods of doing it, okay? So what I'll show you today is to use the Achita English template, okay? So this template called Achita, actually it means Aku Cinta tumbuhan alam, I think, which means that, I love, oh, thank you. It means anak cinta tumbuhan, which literally translates to a child who loves plants, or a person who loves, or people who loves plants, okay? And it was actually built by one of our contestants in the year before last, where we in Indonesia. And we find it useful that although that person actually didn't win the competition, all right, the chatbot itself is very useful because it's simple enough to teach others, it's simple enough to hack, and actually right now it's widely used to actually to create chatbots. So we had teachers and so on who found this template very useful to actually hack, to actually make new chatbots for themselves. All right. So today I won't focus on most of the Achita chatbot. So we've translated obviously into English, and that version is not on the template section. It is on my personal page, right? So you need to look at the community page, do a search for my username, which is just Arnold, my first name, and then you'd find that, okay? So there are a few steps here. There are about 5 or 6 steps, 5 steps, I think it is. The first part is that you need to copy over some files from Achita into your own topic, and there are 2 files are questions and quiz. Okay, and okay, so just to remind, just to maybe, if you can speak Bahasa Indonesia or Bahasa Melayu, then there are actually more materials that are available for you, because that's actually progressed in some ways a bit further in some places, in some areas. And so I encourage you to look at our Bahasa Indonesia materials to learn about Achita and how to hack it and how to use it. Okay, so you can actually copy these files over to your own topics. Then you need to make some customizations, obviously, because it's not appropriate for you. Include them into your main file as usual. Any topics you want to use, you need to include in your main.m. And then, of course, you need to add in a special cloud import, or import at the top of your main.m called Smojo's chat quiz. Smojo/chat/quiz. Okay. And then you need to somehow activate the quiz, of course, through a menu of some kind. All right, so I'll show you how this works. Okay, step by step. Oops, too far. Again, yeah, there you go. Okay, I'm going to close this up here. And what I'm going to do is, so there are 2 places you can get Achita, obviously. The first place is the original Achita, which is on the template section. I suggest you don't use this Achita here, okay? Don't use it because it uses a lot of the older techniques which are no longer relevant. Again, the technology unfortunately moves very fast, but the templates and other stuff need to catch up, okay? And also, so that's a problem here, right? So don't use this Achita. Instead, what you do is you go to community, you search, go to search user, search for Arnold's, right? Spell my name correctly. And here, go to my projects, you'll see the projects that I have. And you go down to Achita, not Achita Baru, which is in Bahasa, all right? Unless, of course, you can speak Bahasa. You want to go to Achita English, all right? And let's click on downloads. Just click on downloads. It's just like downloading a template. But the difference is that instead of it appearing in your main folder like here, all right? Instead, you will see a folder called Arnold. And within that is where you will see Achita English, okay? So you go to Achita English, you'll find actually 2 folders here. Remember Arnold, Achita English in your case, right? In my case, I'm the creator, so I'll just see Achita English alone, right? So you'll see 2 folders here, Chatbot and Report. You click on Chatbot, click on Topics, you'll see all these topics here. The 2 topics that you're going to copy over are the questions and the quiz. So the questions, like the name says, contains all the questions that you want to put into your quiz. All right. And the quiz itself runs the quiz. In other words, that's the scoring for you and all the other stuff. Okay. It's the templates that run the quiz itself. And the questions here are just a list of questions, right? Now, the questions, there are formats to it. I'll explain the format very shortly, all right? But the important part is that you just keep these guys open. You go then and navigate back again to your root folder. Let's say I've got CU101 in this case. I want to add to CU101 the quiz. I need to copy and paste it. I've already done this already. So you copy this to a new file, copy all of this, put a new file like that and say save as questions. Okay, let's say save. And do the same thing for the quiz, right? So Control A will select all. You don't have to go and drag and drop. Just put a Control and an A at the same time. It will then highlight everything for you like magic. Okay, so like this. Control A highlights, then Control C copy. All right, so learn the shortcuts in Windows. Again, Control A highlights, Control V will paste. Right, that's how we do it very fast, not using your mouse. Then it's quiz.m. So I've got these two files now. These are the old files. Don't fuss with them. Don't edit them. Close them off. Okay. And you just want to focus on questions and quiz in your own home folder, right? So make sure they're coming in. Make sure you're editing the right files, all right? So one of the big mistakes people actually make is that they edit the wrong file. So if you open questions in your own, the one that you copied over, you'll see the quiz is given a name. In this case, it's called Achita. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, but you need to change the name later on. Then if you want to change the name, right? And each of these is a question. Okay, each of these is a question here. Okay, and you can add as many questions as you like. There's no limit. You can delete questions, add questions, up to you. All right. The numbering of the questions will be automatic. Okay. Now let's look at the question structure itself, so you understand how this works. So you first have a QQ, which is the question itself. Okay. And you can have this in a single line, or you can have it like in the MM style, you can have multiple lines. So in this case, I've got 2 lines here, 2 lines here for the question, okay? You can have more lines if you want to. Let's say if I put something like this, I can add maybe another one, right? Rice is a plant with fibrous roots that grows in the tropics, right? Which is this fruit? Okay, and if I want to, let's say, include a image, let's say I've got an image of rice. Right? I go back to, let's say, I go to Pixabay, right, and I click on paddy, right, which is rice. Oh, no paddy here. Okay, this is not rice. Is it rice? Okay, this is better. So I'm just gonna click on this, copy this, say right click, copy image address, and then I go back here. I just QQ it. I just paste it like that. Okay, so that will just paste in the image for you and reshape it all nicely as well. Okay, so put your question here, basically, your question section, and then you start with the answers, right? And the answers are going to be displayed top to bottom, all right? And they can select, people can select one or another, right? The correct answer is marked with a close parentheses like this, right? You can have true, false. You can have maybe, or sometimes, or anything else you want. It's actually a free-form answer. The only part is that it needs to be a single line. It cannot be multiple lines. The answers, unlike the questions, must be a single line. Okay, so you can have four answers or 5 answers. It's really up to you. In this case, I've got 2 answers here. Or I'll do sometimes. Let's say I don't know. All right. And last of all, the last section here is the CC. In other words, what is the correct answer? And you oftentimes want to explain the correct answer a bit more. Not just say yes or no, right? So once you have the, if you don't have the CC part, it's also okay. But if you have the CC part, then you can actually put in the explanation for the correct answer itself. And the CC, just like the QQ, you can have multiple lines as well. And very similar to your chatbot templates, you must end it with a triple star. Okay, that's it. All right, fairly straightforward. You can look at the syntax here. If you want to do a double star like this and double star that bolds it, I think a double underscore will underscore it, etc. Okay, so now we go to the more difficult one, which is the quiz itself. Remember, I saved two files. There's questions, and then there's the quiz. So the quiz here actually generates, the actual answers and so on. That's going to go in. All right, and you can see I've used some MMs here, right here and here, it's M correct and whatnot, right? Okay, we'll try and see if this works first. I'll open up the main.m. I'm going to include my quiz and questions. Okay, and then I'm going to publish it. So without the quiz and questions, they don't exist, right? If I publish it, it works. But now, once I do this and I publish again, when I include the topics, you'll find there are actually errors. Errors in smart contacts, etc. and whatnot, right? Lots of complaints here about this thing. And the reason is because the Achita creator actually customized the buttons, and she also made some menus as well for the chatbot. All right. So I didn't copy the customization. I didn't copy over the menu because I don't need them. All right. So how do we compensate for that? So the first part is to understand where it's going wrong. Whenever you face problems like this, the first step is to always comment out all your includes. Publish. Any errors? Yes, there is an error because of the welcome word, right? So we know the welcome word is in intro. I'll uncomment that part. Publish again. Any errors? No error. That means the intro is fine. All right. Then I'll try from the top to the bottom, right? So I'm going to do the quiz and publish again. Any errors? Yes, a lot of errors. That means all the errors are in quiz.m. This is how you can debug. Comment out, then uncomment step by step to see where the errors actually are. All right, so now I know that there is no such word my button, right? So I'm going to go back to the quiz and see where do I find the word my button. So I'm going to do a search. Search, you do it by, I think with the Command F or for Mac or Control F. So my button. There you see that's the first one here, second one here. So now instead of my button with the customized version, I'm just going to change that to button and button here. Okay, and save the file. Okay, remember, always save the file. If you don't save the file, then it's not saved. Then you find this. You're trying to debug, a phantom menace, shall we say? It's not there really. Okay, so make sure that there's no stars here on your stuff by pressing Control S to save. There are shortcut keys, right? You don't have to click on this all the time. You can press Control and S to save the file. Okay, now, is there any other my button here? No more. All right, so I'll stop here. I'll go back to main and I'll try my publish again. Does that work? It does not. All right, because there are three others. There's button main menu. That's the menu button that it's being used to display the main menu of the Achita chatbot. So I don't want those. I want to remove those as well. So I'll do a search for main. There, I found one here. 2 and 3. You see 1 here, 2 and 3. So all I got to do is just to delete these off. Or if you have a menu, then to replace them with your own menu. I don't know do that. I'll just delete them. Okay, and here on the last side, I need to be very careful not to delete the M dot because this is the last. But M dots, you must leave them in place. Okay, now if I go back to main.m and I publish again, it should be thumbs up. Yep, success. Right. So now if I go back now, and if I click on this, all right. Now there's no menu here. If I type M for menu, well, my menu here, right? It says, I don't understand the question. That's odd. Well, that's because I forgot to do all of this stuff as well. Okay, I didn't I didn't really uncomment all my topics which are important for me, right? Let me publish again. And go back to my chatbot here. Maybe I'll just restart it this time. Okay, so it says this, like M for menu, M. So I got food and drink, but I want a quiz. So let me just add a quiz to the menus. I go back to topics, I go back to my menu. All right, and there's food, drink, maybe add a quiz. Oops. Q for quiz, maybe, all right? Okay, and Q. Right, go back to main, I save this and I'm publishing again. Okay, now when I click on this, let me try it again. M for menu, it should display the new menu, which is this, and quiz. See, now it displays the quiz straight away. You can see here, it's got the image that we got in from Pixabay, which is the paddy field. And it's got 4 different answers, right? If I click on I don't know. Oops, something's on my board here. Okay, it says next question, and then it just goes on. Okay, so that's how you can add a quiz. Now, this quiz, unfortunately, doesn't really end, right? It ends by you clicking on the main menu to get out of the quiz. There are other forms of the quiz. So the questions part is exactly the same, but the quiz part can be different. So this quiz for Achita, it just goes all over the shop, and then you need to escape or get out of it by clicking on the main menu, right? But there are other forms of the quiz from other templates like Remo and so on. Unfortunately, those are in Bahasa, but I don't think it's too hard for you to understand how it works. Right? There are a few quizzes here. There's Remo, there is Mahe, and there's Mini Student. This chatbot Bhinneka, all these chatbots, by the way, are in Bahasa Indonesia. And I would not recommend that you use the chatbot Bhinneka because it is a very big chatbot and very complex. This is actually used it was commissioned by the Indonesian government to promote racial and religious harmony. It's actually being there's a version 2 that's out right now, and it's being used now widely in schools in Indonesia. But I don't recommend that you do this bot, although it's a very sophisticated bot with a lot of different parts. All right, I would recommend instead that you try something like Mahe or Remo, which are fairly simpler. Maybe Mahe. Okay, so those would give you quizzes which you can actually customize, their scores, etc., and so on. Okay, so I will stop there for the time being, and let me see. We've still got some time left. If time permits, can you teach on some math functions? Okay, I'll come to that later on. How do you restrain the size of the bot, e.g. the length and the height? Well, you cannot restrain the height. You can restrain the width, right? You restrain the width by changing the bubble bot width, right? So there's a setting there under. Let me show it to you. There's a setting here. You go to your publish page. There's a lot of settings here actually, and these settings are the basic settings that you can use to restrict the size and width and all the other stuff. The one you want really to restrain the width is one that is actually commented out. Is this one here, bubble bot width. So this is actually very useful. You can change this number to any number that you want to either shrink it or make it wider. The other one I would recommend that you investigate at least is the limit. In other words, how many responses at most do you want the bot to remember? So it doesn't have to be scroll very, very long, right? It can be a very short scroll and it forgets all the rest. And it makes your bot faster actually, if you don't have it to remember too much, because then you are downloading less from the server itself. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. So let me look at the next question. Why is quiz above intro.m? Wouldn't that be below? It doesn't really matter because the rules are disjoint. They've got nothing to do with each other. Okay. Is it possible to end the quiz in Achita English with minimum edit and or customization? Not really. Not really. Okay, it's tricky. And you need to really understand all the concepts I've taught you today before you can do the editing. It's possible you can do it because the person who created Achita was just like you. They actually went through the same program that you did, and they're not programmers either. Okay, she was a non-programmer and she managed to do it. Okay, but it is still tricky because you need to understand how it works, how all these things work before you can actually make those edits. So what if you knew how to make the edits, if you know how things work, then I would say it's actually fairly straightforward to do it. If you don't know how to do it, then the answer is that maybe not. You want to look at a template that you have already at hand. I think the Remo one has got a set of questions that it goes through. It's not like Achita. Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will answer. How do we, when we go further, how can we simultaneously work on different main.m? I have no idea what you mean by that. Okay, so maybe you want to explain that a bit and we can discuss that in the chat group. Okay. Okay, about the math functions, there is actually a lot on the math functions already. If you go to here, there is Mojo here. Okay, there's a whole ton of stuff on arithmetics, where there's these basic math functions. But there are other math functions like sine, cosine, log, and everything else. In fact, there are even byte manipulations as well. So I will send you a PDF file on the chat later on to show you how to use. We actually use Mojo for data processing as well. So I have some introductory material for that, which I think you can actually have a look at least if you're interested in that kind of stuff, and you can see how it can be done for math. Okay. Okay, so I want to go on to something that's also, I hope that's interesting for you. So let's move on because we are now running short of time. No course can cover everything, all right? So there'll always be extra bits and pieces like, how do you upload images? How do you use the camera, a phone in your camera, the camera on your phone? Right? How do you do things like, like I said, plurals and so on, right? Automatic pluralization. A lot of different things. How do you save data, right? Capture data from your chatbot and then save it to some kind of database. How do you do that, right? How do you track users when they come in so that you know where they went to, for example, right? Anonymously, okay? How do you do that? How do you customize the response of your chatbot to the user? Let's say the person says his name is Arnold. When he comes back again to your chatbot, you want to say, hi, Arnold. Right? You don't want to say, what's your name? Right? How do you do that? How do you create things like logins and so on, other stuff, right? So all of that is possible, and all of that has been explained in better detail than I can in a few minutes, in half an hour or 2 hours, right? We have whole tutorials for those things. And so I think the best approach is, if you are interested in any one of those things, then maybe you can let me know and I can point you to the right direction. But today what I'll do is, to end off this meeting, so I'll show you some things which may interest you and which perhaps you might find useful as well, given the nature of your chatbots for this competition, right? How do you upload images into the chatbot itself? How do you use a camera? And how do you actually create some plurals, right? So what else can you do with these Mojo chatbots, right? So it's a lot more. And I've actually collected some samples in Chatbot Extras. And depending on your own feedback, I will add in stuff into this little folder, into this little of templates and topics, which you can just download and you can use it in your own chatbots straight away. Okay. So let me show you an example. I didn't show you where to download it from. So if you go again, you've got to search for my username. You will see this, and I'll leave it like this with this image here. And then you can just download the materials and then just copy and paste the topics. They're very small, very focused, so it's easy to see how it's being used. It's not like Achita, which is very big, bigger than these templates. Okay, so let me just demo a few things for you. All right, so again, you go to my community page, look for my name, and then it might not be at the top because the ordering would be depending on when I published it. I just published this 3 hours ago. If I republished it, then go to the top again. Okay, and here 45 downloads. Goodness, you guys are really Jasu. Good. Okay, so download this, all right, because you can see the examples and can follow as well with me. Okay. Okay, good. So once downloaded, so you will see again my name there, Arnold, with that folder in which is Chatbot Extras. Now I'm showing you on my screen, so this is my screen, is up here right at the top. All right. So again, main.m. There are few different topics, few different things that you can experiment with. All right. Don't do too many at the same time. Don't uncomment all the includes like that, right? That will probably crash the thing or it won't work. All right. So just do one at a time, right? And understand what you are trying to do. All right. So I'm gonna comment out the plurals once. It's not that interesting. Maybe the more interesting one is the image upload. You've got a file on your laptop and you're going to upload it to your chatbot somehow, okay? So that it can display the image. That's all it does at this stage, all right? I won't show you today, at least, how to save it to a database. That's another possibility as well. You can save it to a database, all right? But I won't do that today, but I will do some examples. I will put it into the Chatbot Extras, and I will also maybe show you next week how to do the databasing. It's not that complicated. All right, so here I've got topics called image upload. And the important part is that there is a cloud helper, a cloud import called smojo/chat/image-upload. What this is doing here is that it's downloading that library in real time and then plonking it into your chatbot, okay? So the image upload template, or sorry, the topic is actually fairly easy. Image upload here. So you can see here, I've used a welcome, all right, and I've given some instructions on how to use it. I've created a mem called pic, P-I-C, and I've put a default value for the picture itself, okay? There's no pic, right? Then I've got 3 templates here. The first template is to upload the image. The second one is to display the picture. So I've called a pic space image, just like, remember the image word that we used previously, all right? So pic is not a URL specifically, it's actually what's called a data URL, all right? It contains actually the image data itself. And last of all is the catch-all that actually grabs the image that was downloaded. So you have last question, you have last picture, okay? And it inserts the last picture into the mem called pic and tells the user that it's successfully uploaded, okay? So let's work this chatbot here and see how it actually functions. So let's go and publish and try this out. So here are the instructions: upload to up the image. So let's click on upload. Sorry. Right. So if you click on select image here, it will open up your browser, windows, right? So let's say, see, I've got this fancy little Mojo AI, right, done by my son, right? He was trying to propose this as the logo for Mojo AI. Okay, I think it's pretty neat as well. And if you like it, and this is the image that you want, then you click on upload image, and it's done. It will go to the catch-all. You saw that flash briefly just now. It actually just tells the browser, this is your image, your chatbot, this is the image, and it says picture successfully uploaded. Now, if I type pic, because you say pic to actually recall the image, right? You can see here it's being pasted up. I type pic again, it'll be pasted up again, etc. Okay. So at this stage, the image lives between your browser and your chatbot on our servers. Okay, that's it. Once you shut this off, it's gone. I mean, it's gone. It's still on your, since it's your image, it's still on your computer, but it's no longer accessible by your chatbot anymore, unless you upload it again. Next week, or maybe, yeah, next week, I will show you how you can take this image and permanently store it into a database. Okay? So that's fairly straightforward, yeah? So now I will do another chatbot for you, which is the camera capture. So for this one, again, I'm going to be careful and not open up too many includes, too many examples. That's the topic/camera, shows the camera. And for that, you need the cloud word called smojo/chat/camera. All right. And let me go to that topic now, camera. And see, it's very similar to the previous one. It's just that instead of upload image, it has something called show camera, right, within the smartphones, right? Same way to display the picture. And here, there's same way to actually load using last picture. But there's a bit of extra here where I need to call in a smart context, remove camera to actually wipe the camera out after it's being used. All right. I'll show you the difference between these two methods. Let's say if I do and if I don't use remove camera. Okay. So if I don't use remove camera, the camera widget will remain on the chatbot itself, which may not be what you want. So I'll try it without the remove camera first. All right. If I go to main now, and I publish. Now, in your chatbot, your browser will probably ask you, do you want to give this site permission to access your camera? All right, so I've already done that, but your browser may ask you to do that instead. Right, so I'm going to type in the camera. Oh, not cameras. Okay, so here you can say, yeah, here it says Mojo, appsmojo.org wants to use your camera. So I'm going to allow it. Okay. And once I allow it, oops, it's a bit flaky here. It says permission denied. Not sure why it says permission denied. Confirm. Okay. Not allowed error, permission denied by system. Okay, I'm not sure why it's saying that. It's probably a setting for my browser, for my for Mac. I'm using a Mac. If I try a different browser, I think it'll probably work. So I tried it on Firefox just now. Let me try it one more time. Okay. Oh, it doesn't like me at all. Okay, so I need to actually maybe change the settings for Chrome, right? But let me try a different browser. So here, if I go to C101 and publish this chatbot, just close up all this other stuff. Not this one. Okay, so okay, that. No, I'm sorry, I think I put the wrong one. I have the wrong one open. Sorry, my bad. Just give me a minute. It's in C101. It should be in Chatbot Extras. Main publish. Okay. Click on this. Right, camera. This actually calls my camera because I already given it permission to actually do this thing. Right, and if I click on the red button here to actually take the picture, it takes a single picture for me, all right? And you can set the quality of this with a setting as well, okay? And click on the red, the green dot. All of this stuff is customizable, by the way, right? And it says picture successfully taken. And you can see the camera is still active. You may not want that, right? But if you click on pick now, it should display my picture that I took the snapshot of, right? Now, if I don't want to have the camera, I'll remove it after. If you want to remove the camera after it's taken, then you go to the next one, which is with the remove camera in smart context. And what that does for you is that it actually just removes the camera once the picture is being taken. Take the picture. Got the picture here, agree to it. And you can see it's removed the camera with a blank there. You can actually customize that too, right? It says picture successfully taken. Now pick, it shows my picture, pick again, shows the same thing. Okay, so that's one way you can take or capture images using your chatbot. And actually all of that stuff is customizable, all right? So I want to show you something else which is important. All of these things like the camera, the upload, the share here. Share, I've not explained this. I'll explain. Yes, I was going to explain it this week. And dbase and so on all have got some words inside of them, but they are all also documented as well. All right, you can find the documentation easily. You copy the word here that you want, open up a new tab. All right, and then type in Smojo/doc. Okay, very simple, right? And then say doc space, and then the module that you want to learn about. Let's say it's Mojo/chat/camera. All right, and then don't click publish on anything else. Click on the run button this time. So this one, click on the run button, right? And what you'll find is that on the right hand panel will come up a series of documentation that explain clearly how this thing works, and it also explains the various words that are available for you to customize or anything else. Like I can also do things like a share, for example. Okay, what is it? Image upload. So let's change this. Oh. I run this, and you can see the documentation for image upload is there, and they've got the properties here that you can change. All right, and you can show also what properties that you can actually edit. So now these are all built-in CSS, which you can just change by just changing the properties. And there's examples here on how you can change the properties for the image upload and so on. It's very customizable and very convenient to use. Right, share. I'm not sure if share has got anything. Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, so you can see all so share's got a lot more. And this is much more complicated. This is for referrals and so on, which I'll explain perhaps in a short video next week. All right, but so far none of you guys are already using referrals. dbase. There's a lot of these other modules for yeah, there is as well. So the dbase one is useful. It's how we can store data and retrieve data. Okay, so if you're familiar with hashes, then you can use this dbase method to actually store and retrieve data. Okay, so that is really it for me. There's one last thing that I want you guys to take note of, is that how can you share your own work, right? How do you share with the community itself, right? So there is a Mojo community where people can see all the projects that are being listed out, and there are tons of these projects. We are actually in the midst of revamping this part as well. So the first part is to customize your profile page. So like in my case, I've got my face out there, my profile page, and you can see this person here has got his face as well, or whatever you want to put for your profile page. How do you customize your profile page? Very easy. You go back to the editor. You notice there's a little gear button. It says profile settings, right? Click on that, okay, and don't show it to others because it contains all your personal information, like your telephone number and stuff like that, right? So I don't want to click mine, but you can click on that and then you can just customize it from there. All right. The other, to share with the community, what you do is you create a project. Let's say in this case, I've created something like, let's say I want to share, I don't know, Smojo bot, for example, or Smojo tutorial, something else, right? I want to share one of these things. What I'll do is I just right click it, click on share with community, and there here, well, here got says algorithms, and then here, this is the name, the title of your shared project, okay? And that'll appear in the title on top when you share it. And then here, you just click a description, like algorithms or probabilistic stream processing, right? Right, and then you want to just put in, let's say, you can put in an image. So an image is easy. Just again, just go to your friendly Pixabay or whatever else you want to do, right? Or Stable Diffusion or something like that. Go to an image link site. Let's use Pixabay, and let's say we search for an image. Let's say, I don't know, oceans. A lot of these images are copyright free. All right, so yeah, like this one here. And then click on that, and then right click and click on the copy image link. You don't even have to save the image or copy the image to your laptop. Also, then just paste that link here and click on share. And once you do that, right, if you click on community page, right, and click on my projects, that's all your projects. So my projects appear like this, and you can see here the name that you gave it, the description that you have, and then of course the image that you chose. All right, and people can comment on that, they can download stuff, and you can even at any time delete this. So you delete it, it's not deleted off your folder, it's just deleted as a share, nothing else. Okay. All right, so I think that covers everything I want to talk about today. Let me just answer the last few questions. Can showcase how we publish the community and share to our teammates. Well, I've just done that. Is there a random number generator we can use? Yes, there is. Okay, there is. I think I've actually answered this question in the chat groups. Where can we find a list of library of Smojo commands? I've also answered that many times, okay, in the chat as well. All you got to do is click on your IDE. So where can we find lists or libraries of Smojo commands? So the most common or frequent ones are listed in Smojo, and they come with Q&As and recommend, you can try it out also. All right. So for example, let's say if I click on, so I would recommend that you try the basic and intermediate if you're interested. Well, you can do the advanced stuff, but it's harder to understand why it's important. Okay. So I would say that, you don't have to really do the advanced stuff, but the basic and intermediate can be done honestly within a couple of hours. And there are actually exercises for you and answers as well for each of these. All right. So let's say, for example, I have arithmetic, okay, unknown about Smojo arithmetic, right? So I've got this as an example, right? So I just copy the example here, go to my Smojo AI, I click a new tab, paste it in, and then run it. And it'll say, okay, right? So what this is 0, right? So answer is 0, right? In this case, 2 divided by 3, which integer division is 0, right? With non-integer division, it's like a slash dot. Then of course you'll get a decimal place, right? So there are other of these, very basic stuff out here. And then from between basic and intermediate, it'll give you a very clear idea of how to do stuff, how to read the code, and so on. But it may be very unfamiliar to you, especially if you are a programmer. Okay, so actually, if you're not a programmer, it's probably easier for you to understand what's going on. If you are a programmer, then it's probably a bit harder to understand what's going on because it is quite different from most programming languages. All right. Is there a random number generator we can use? Well, of course there is. So all you've got to do is in your code, your main.m, just click on, just put include random. Right. So this is not a topic. All right. Just put include random like that and save it. And then what you can do is, let's say I want to display a random number each time. I go to my, let's see now, where was that again? On the extras, right? Let's say I don't want to do this on the extras, I'll do it on intro, okay? So let's look at the intro here. It's a very simple thing. Now here, what I want to do is I want to display also, I'll make this into a code. Okay. And I'm going to make a random integer. I'm going to paste this into this thing here, right? So all right, that's one way of doing it. Okay, in your chatbots, and then if you publish this, it should work. The other way you can do it is to actually just do it in a, you can test it out also straight away without a chatbot in your IDE part. So you can say include random. Then you can just say I random. And then dot to print things out. Okay, and you run this, you'll find it produces a new number each time. See? Okay. Now, if you want to limit it between two numbers, it's possible to just write a Smojo word to actually do that for you. All right. So you write, let's say put I, R, and D, and let's say A and B. Between A and B, and you'll produce some random number, right? So the way you do that is get the A and the B, all right? And you can say first you're going to get the distance between A and B, right? So it's B A minus. This is your N, and then you put I random. Okay, and then N mod. So you need to know what a modulus is. Sorry, and then you add with the A, right? So let's try this and just see if it works. So I'm going to print this. I'm going to print a random number. Well, I don't have to do that. I can just call iRand. Oh, it needs it needs an A and a B. So let's say between 0 and 100. All right. Well, it doesn't quite work because this thing actually needs an absolute value as well. So I need to put an IAPS. All right. So if it's below 0, I'm going to multiply it with -1. Otherwise, I just exit. Okay, so let's try that. 64, 82, 6, right. All right, so I'll just include this also in your chatbot extras, right? Okay, any other questions? Is there a list of all the Smojo include modules? No, there is no exhaustive list because the list keeps changing all the time. And previously, we were also worried about security as well for the platform. So we actually recently made adjustments to Smojo to allow very tight security for this system. We may document it later on, but right now we don't really want to expose too much because we're also afraid of things like loading and other stuff. Okay, and it may not be convenient for you to actually use these things if you don't know Smojo extensively. All right. But the Smojo words, for sure, yes, they are all documented. The main, at least the ones that you need to know. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, wonderful. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed that. We are 10 minutes shy and of 5 p.m. But I'm sure you're all tired. I'm surely tired of speaking so long. Thank you, Chris. That's really everything I have to say. I think we can call it a day.